G'day everyone, I'm Smokescreen and welcome back to another video. This race here, it's a FIA race in Nations Cup. It's a different season to the previous video. The previous video was like the final round of a season, and this is the following season. It's round 3 or something. It's N200 at Goodwood Motor Circuit. The car we've gone for, or the car that everyone has gone for, is the Toyota SFR. Clearly the best car in this particular race, hence why everyone's using it. But we'll have a look at the qualifying session. So I went out of the pit lane, did a bit of fuel burning. Halfway around my lap, or about 2/3 of the way around the lap, I kind of realised this fuel burning is going to take way too long. So with about 3 minutes to go, I started my lap, and we're going to try and start the lap here. You see I make a complete hash of it. So instead of proceeding with the start of the lap, I end up going into the pits and changing to a brand new set of tyres. So I did one lap on one set of tyres, and they're going to be replaced by another one, but we'll come out and then we bring it around. That's a better start to the lap, get onto the power nicely that time. So let's have a look at the qualifying lap here at Goodwood, heading into turn 1, Madgewick corner, I believe it is called, I'm correct, as per my notes here. Into 5th gear, turning in just on the marshal post, and then coasting through there, no brakes at all, coasting at the apex and then power back out to the outside. We're looking to keep a good average speed up there around 160 k's you want to be, or you definitely don't want to be below 155 for a decent lap here. Turn 2, that's forward water, and then heading up towards turn 3, which is flat out, nearly 200 kilometres an hour. I think there's a slight, no, there is a lift through there to keep it over to the right hand side. Braking into St Mary's, turn 4, turn 5 down into the dip, and then we're going to bring it towards Levant corner, turn 6 and turn 7. Braking well before the 50 into 3rd gear to get the car slowed, and then 4th gear to avoid an awkward gear change in the acceleration zone. You end up, you lose less time changing up early just before accelerating than you do accelerating and gear changing. Now this car does require a little bit of a short shift, especially up into that 5th gear, and a little bit of a lift off the accelerator is what the top guy was doing. So that's what I'm going to do. It ended up just being habit, I think, but I think it does help. Braking into Woodcote now, double apex, out onto the curb. Touch the grass a little bit, but you don't lose too much time in the chicane. You do not want to touch any walls through there. And I actually nailed it that time, that was excellent. Out towards the finish line. Current fastest lap is a 1:28.9. I crossed the line with the 1:29.9. So second off the pole position currently. Puts me in 8th at this point here, which is not too bad. But you see, towards the end of the session, we are demoted to 9th. But as with FIA, enjoy the intro. And then we meet me on the grid here in 9th position on the grid. Rolling start, of course, given that we're not even on the front straight at this point. Now the strategy, there is no strategy. It's flat out to the end. We're on comfort soft tyres. Comfort tyres, basically atomic bomb proof. They pretty much do not wear whatsoever, or they do, but not enough to warrant a pit stop. And then fuel, we've got more than enough to get to the end, like twice as much as you need. So I was revving quite aggressively through the opening sequence. But we start the race nonetheless. Here at Goodwood, we've got 15 laps in the Toyota SFR here. Now, everyone has gone for the Toyota SFR. So it does lead to a bit of a dynamic where sort of everyone is stuck in a bit of a slipstream train because everyone's car is identical. Of course, N200, you can tune the cars up and down into different categories, but then as soon as you tune it down far enough to be in the correct category, it then locks it onto a balance of performance setting. So this car initially stock is in N400. And then for this race, we tune it down to N200, so it's fairly close to about as slow as this car can get. On the exit St Mary's there, I dropped one wheel onto the grass, had a little bit of oversteer. That just leads Iron Mask, the fellow Australian, or I guess we're all Australian, yes. The fellow Australian player through, so we're demoted into 10th, but as long as we don't lose that slipstream of that group ahead, it's okay. We're going to see coming down the straight here, I go for the early shift into 5th, and that just brings me evenly sped up with the guy, and then he gear changes there. You see just how much ground he loses by gear changing a little bit later than I do, so that's why that slight short shift is beneficial for this car. He goes in quite early, almost puts the whole car up on the grass as I do on the, that second apex turn 9 of Woodcote Corner, and nearly, I suppose if you get all wheels up on that grass, that will be an instant penalty. We do not want that. Coming out of the chicane, I don't get the greatest of exits, neither does the guy behind, and you see I'm now in a bit of a pocket of air on my own. They're side by side up ahead up into turn 1, never a good idea, but kudos to Iron Mask, he manages to get that move done, and he finds himself up into 8th, so he's had quite a good lap or so, going from behind me to 2 cars ahead of me. But you see coming down the straight now, I guess turn 2, but it is flat out, in the slipstream. The slipstream, it's not that powerful, which is good, but it is enough to get a little bit of overspeed. You probably, you're going to have to be quite close to be able to get a move out of it, but you can definitely use the straights to keep in, touch with the group ahead, and that's what I do for the opening few laps here. So I wanted to concentrate here on not making any mistakes, because Goodwood, the nature of the track, it's very flowy, very fast, grass right on the edges of the track, minimal curbing. I mean, look at that curb there, it's basically non-existent. One wheel on the grass and you're gone. Now, this car does have a little bit of aero, but you're not going to feel as much dirty air as you would in like a Super Formula car, which gets absolutely bombarded with dirty, filthy air. Coming into the chicane now, I've actually caught up quite a bit of ground to this group and get it. I was going to say I'll get an okay exit. I don't really get a good exit at all. Not quite carrying the speed of my opponents on the exit at turn 11 there. But it's not to worry. Still in the slipstream. Of course, slipstream's probably 1.5 seconds, but you probably want to keep a bit closer than that in these cars because they're quite a bit slower than, say, a Group 3 car, which can gain from that far back. But we'll see coming down the straight, about 6 tenths behind this group now, which is beginning to sort of implode a little bit. Iron Mask once again going up on the inside. The pubs guy just has to brake a little bit, probably getting quite close to the cars ahead. And Iron Mask actually finds himself up in 7th at this point. 3 cars ahead of me now. So that's quite a good gain. He's making good gains here, but you see this little group here, the guy at the front of the pack, I can't quite see his name, the guy in 6th in the orange car, he is defending quite a bit, and you see up ahead, it may be difficult to see at this point, but you see the gap up to the next group up the road is quite massive, definitely out of slipstream range. So that unfortunately has written off the race. We're now going to be battling with these guys for basically the entire thing, so we'll just monitor it as well though, because if the group way up the road begins to fight too much with each other, they'll end up losing quite a lot of time, and then that'll allow some of us to be able to get up into that group there. But they're just coming on the exit of the chicane. The guy that I'm just referring to makes a bit of a mistake, ends up extremely wide on the exit, sideways across the grass and comes back onto the track. Luckily I graze on the side of him rather than, slamming head on into him, so that finds us up into 9th place at the beginning of lap 4. Coming through turn 1, I've got the overspeed on this pair up ahead. We're going to get into the slipstream as well. Pubs is in between me and Matt Yogi here, and let's have a look here. I do have the overspeed going into turn 2. He doesn't shut the door, he leaves it open. I'm going to take that opportunity to go up the inside, and he begins to bump draft Matt Yogi here in order to try and, keep somewhat alongside, but he just falls in behind as we have that slight right-hander before St Mary's, and then that just allows me to move myself up into 8th place with the lovely, I guess it was an okay move. And then Matt Yogi misses his shift or something. I don't know what happened there. He just lost a lot of speed for no reason just before Levant corner there, and just really slows down on the way in. But then on the exit he gets the superior exit. so we're going to grab his slipstream as well. Heading down towards Woodcote Corner now, in the slipstream of Matt Yogi. If we're going to be able to do anything with it, I just dart to the inside, last second, half off the circuit. Let's have a go at it. Heading down into Woodcote Corner, I just go a little bit deep, little bit of contact with Matt Yogi there, but I think that's fair game. Performs a cutback on me, and unfortunately I'm just out of position. That just allows this Paco guy, the green car or yellow car, whatever it is, to move his way through as well. So that's often the tactic you'll see cars following each other through, because after one car passes, I guess the victim is out of position, and then a further car is able to move through, and that's kind of what we've seen go on here. If we look up ahead, you'll just see 6th place is close enough to the picture to see the little data thing above his car. He's actually fallen out of the group, out of the lead pack. So we'll just keep an eye on that, because he's on his own. We're all in slipstream in this group back here, so we're going to be, as a group, moving faster around the circuit than someone on their own without slipstream. So we're just going to keep an eye on that. It's definitely, we're only on lap 5, so it's definitely something we can keep an eye on, keep tabs on, and see how the race develops, and see what we can do in regards to gaining positions here. Down Levant Straight, once again, lap 5. I have Paco going up the inside of Matt Yogi, or Matt Yog1 is technically his name, but we'll call him Matt Yogi. Up the inside, and this is what I mean, Matt Yogi's out of position a little bit, going slow, avoiding the slipstream, so I go up the inside, and then Paco, he doesn't quite stay to the right-hand side long enough, and it just allows me to get up there too, because of course when he pulled out to go for his move, he was not in slipstream, and it just caused him to lose a little bit of speed. On the exit of the chicane there, I do get a slightly poor run, touching the grass on the exit there a little bit, and that just allows the car behind to, start to edge his way up beside me, but he's on the wrong side of turn 1, so I just park it on the apex. Of course I was narrow, so I'm not quite able to carry as much speed, but if I park it right on the traditional apex, any car taking the normal line will just drive into the back of me instead, and that is valid. That's okay to do. It's all in a defensive day's work of racing here. Coming around into St. Mary's, or the right-hander before St. Mary's, Paco goes for a lovely move around the outside. Do you see how close that was at the front of our cars there? That was absolutely beautiful racing from the pair of us there. He was able to sweep in ahead through the right-hander. That's fine. That's an absolutely excellent move there, so I'll happily be victim to that. Zero contact on the way through as well, but on the exit of Levant Corner there, Matt Yogi looks to the inside of the exit, getting a superior run off the corner, but I just get into the slipstream, and I'm just able to get enough speed from that to just fend him off a little bit. So now that we've formed a bit of a train, instead of being in like a cluster, I'm going to bump draft him to try and set sights on 6, but unfortunately going into Woodcote, I just brake a little bit too late, and I have to back off to let him in back ahead. So on the exit of the chicane there, we get an average exit, the same as the cars around us, so that's okay. But now we'll have a look way up ahead on the road. I do have a penalty getting served up there, or beginning to be served, so that's 6th place. He's fallen out of the back of the group, and if you have a look up on the mini-map, he's lost more ground to the group than he has gained on us, so the gap between him and his group that he fell out of is larger than the gap between him and Paco. So that is definitely something to keep an eye on. We're about halfway through the race at this point. The 6th place has served that penalty. He has come a little bit closer, but not enough to let him fall into the clutches of our group and begin to sort of become victim to overtaking. So it's important to note with these cars, they're not going that fast to begin with, so when you serve that penalty, you don't slow down that much. That's something with this game. I'm pretty sure there is a set speed under which you serve the penalties irregardless of the car. So say you're driving at 400 kilometers an hour, to serve a penalty you have to slow down to 100, but if you're travelling 110, you only have to slow down 10 kilometers an hour, and you lose less time relative to the rest of the pack. I think that is how the game works it out. I've seen cases where cars basically don't lose speed at all because they're already travelling below the penalty wind down speed. through Woodcote there. Paco gets quite a poor run on there, but I'm not quite able to translate that into an overtake, especially going into that chicane there. You just see how marginal it really is going through there on your own, on the exit. There's really not much space on the exit there. You have to get your line dead right, and then you have to not get too far onto the grass so you get sucked off. So now to lap 8 now. Coming through turn 1, we did have Matt Yogi trying to go around the outside of turn 1. Never going to work, just given the nature of the corner and how you have to take it very far to the inside. But we've got the run up on Paco here. Lap 8, do we go for the move? No, we go for the bump draft to try and catch 6th place. At this point here, at the start of the, sort of at the front of the group we're in, I do want to try and work together to try and bring that 6th position ever closer, and then towards the end of the race is where you start to fight each other for the positions. Coming into Levant now, I do have Matt Yogi trying to go up the inside, and he does successfully move his car up onto the inside there, and the second car behind him nearly followed him through, but I just shut the door just in time on the exit. But unfortunately, I just lose a little bit of speed after being out of position on that first apex, turn 6 of Levant corner there, and you see just how much ground I've lost to Paco now. So, you know, what was a sensible train trying to work together has started to sort of show cracks as we get later into the race there. Matt Yogi taking a nice line through there, actually braking just dead correctly into the chicane now, brakes slightly late, very close to that turn 10 apex. You do not want to crash into any of these walls, as you will, you know, become an immediate 0 km/h object and lose pretty much infinite time, essentially, from becoming completely stopped on there. But going through turn 1, unfortunately, I just catch the grass on the exit a little bit. I try to keep the foot in it to try and minimise time loss, and I lose 2 positions, completely drop off the back of Matt, and then I lose a further position to this pubs guy that we were fighting earlier. So that's been a really poor showing here at this point, but hopefully those cars can sort of bring themselves together via slipstream and just start to lose time together, and hopefully allow me to come back into that group. Of course, individuals as well will be put off by having traffic so close to them and may not, you know, they might accelerate a bit later or brake a bit later by accident, not know it, and then they themselves will begin to lose time as well. So hopefully, you know, hopefully that happens. I don't wish, you know, I don't have any ill wishes against my opponents, but, you know, you're never gonna, you know, via courtesy let someone stay ahead. You're always gonna try and, you know, take the positions. That's exactly what the point of racing is, and given that FIA Nations Cup, it's a points race, you get more points the closer you are to the front. You obviously get the most if you come first. Have a look up ahead. Someone's wide on the exit of Woodcote and just slots in between me and this pubs guy, going very slow on the exit. I just have to swerve to the left out of the way, and you see I actually pass him completely outright before the run into turn 1, so I don't even have to worry going side by side through there. And thankfully, I think that just allows me to catch up that little bit of ground to pubs as well. We're now back into slipstream range here of the Toyota SFR up ahead, and he in turn is in slipstream of the group that I fell out of 1 lap ago. So I think that has kind of saved the race a little bit for me. But I am at 11th. I started 9th, remember, so we're going to try and get back to where we started at least, especially given that we have had quite a poor, or, you know, we haven't had any outstanding events happen in this race here. Both these cars made a little bit of a mistake going through St Mary's corner. One was wide on the entry, or narrow on the entry all over the grass. One was wide on the exit. It's a little bit argy-bargy through Levant corner there. I had half my car alongside the Paco, sorry, the car behind it. He does turn in a little bit, but some contact, but no penalties, so we'll take it. We'll just continue on as we were. So end of lap 10, coming into the final third of the race now, where having a look, we're firmly, you know, within sights of 9th, got 2 cars ahead of him, so 7th is possible given that we have quite a good final few laps here. So we're getting a lap 11 now, we've got 4 laps to go, or 5, sorry. Awful at maths here, but we'll continue in the slipstream now. Of course, like I said, not much dirty air through here, coming through turn 1, a little bit wide of the apex. Nearly touched the grass on the exit there. You do not want to do that, as I demonstrated on the start of lap 9. You can have a look at my lap times on the right hand side and see which lap I made the mistake on. So I was fairly consistent actually, 129, 131, 130, 130, and then I made the mistake immediately back into the 130s on lap 10. We'll come back to current times here. So Pubs goes up the inside of Evil 177, however you say his name, the rich blue car there, goes up the inside on through turn 3 there, and is just out of position a little bit going into Levant corner, and just commit a little bit too early, and I have to turn out of it, and that just lends me to a poor exit onto Levant straight now. The blue car has once again gone ahead of Pubs there, so they're jostling for position a little bit. That's good news for me. So battling means they're losing time, but it doesn't look like that at this point. I'm still a second behind, and Pubs seems to be the only car that, out of the pair of us, that has actually latched onto the back of the group up ahead of 3, and then I am sort of on the back foot a little bit. So I did say earlier, comfort soft tyres, they do last a while, but towards the end of the race I am beginning to feel the effects of the tyre wear a little bit. You can see probably 10 to 15% worn on the left hand side, so I am beginning to get a little bit more sliding than I would like. Coming through turn 1, I just get caught in the marbles here, and I'm just out onto the grass again, so I'm not really having a great closing stages of this race here, and unfortunately I just lose that position of brain ache there. I'm having a bit of a brain ache at the moment, feeling very poorly after my atrocious error on the beginning of this lap here. Coming up towards the right-hander before St. Mary's, Paco once again is with us, about 3 or 4 tenths behind us at this point. Now, he's either going to get past and we can work together to try and catch this group up ahead. We've only got, 3.5 laps to go, so, it is really crucial here that we try and work together, don't fight too much, otherwise we're both going to lose out. And he does actually go through in this occasion on the exit of Levant corner there onto Levant straight, and he does have the overspeed there. Let's see what happens throughout gear changes here. I'm going to rev out fourth a little bit, and he will change quite similarly, but I begin to get the overspeed towards the end of the straight there. I go to the very inside once again into Woodcote, braking pretty much exactly the same point as he did, and he just sweeps around the outside through turn 8, so he does keep that position up ahead, a little bit wide off the chicane, the first part of the chicane, but he does get a better exit than me. I had a little bit too much steering angle on when I tried to get onto the power there. Lap 13, see, we are dropping off in lap times a little bit. If you have a look on the right hand side, the lap time board, did a 131 and then a 134. It's really you really want to stay in your 130s. I think at the start of the race I had quite a good pace. I had, quite a good balance between pace and tyre saving, as that's kind of what you want to do. But unfortunately, once I start making mistakes, I tend to make more because I get a bit rattled. I've found that quite a bit when I'm racing, that I can quite happily, go around and lap consistently. I mean, you saw that in my previous video in the Toyota 86 at Maggiore. I was able to lap in the lead quite convincingly. If you want to, link a description if you want to have a look at that video as well. Also, lots of other interesting things down in the description, stats, my equipment. Have a look down there. Anyway, back onto here. Yes, once I kind of make one mistake, it's kind of like, oh, I got to be careful now, and then I kind of watch myself, and I end up focusing on it too much and making further mistakes. So I think that's what we're beginning to see here. But coming into Woodcote there, Paco's a little bit wide, and I do catch quite a few tenths. I didn't see exactly how far behind I was before the corner, but coming through the chicane right onto his back bumper now, pretty much breaking parts of his splitter off, but he does get a more superior exit, and he does stretch out 2.5 tenths. That 14, I've got 2 laps to go. The group up ahead has split apart as well, so if you have a look up on the mini-map in the top right, see the little blue indicators the car is very, very spread out, and you see the lead is actually way ahead going through Levant corner at this point. But if you have a look, what was at the beginning of the race was clusters. It's now quite an even spread from sort of second. There's a little group with second, and then there's, you know, even spread of cars down to me and a group behind. But that tends to be what happens as well, as especially in these races where you're using the same car. You know, slipstream is very important, and slipstream allows you to keep, you know, clusters of cars together. But eventually what happens is tyre wear and the cars lighten up as fuel is used. You do tend to start to make a little bit more mistakes because you don't have quite as much practice in cars with worn tyres as you do in cars with full tyres, as you do all your practice with 100% tyre. So you do tend to make more mistakes, and then the group can kind of fall apart a little bit, as it has in this example here. But I still think it's a good race so far. Coming on to the final lap, you see how close we are to Paco throughout lap 14 there. On the exit of the chicane, Paco's all out on the grass. I've only got the 2 wheels on the grass. You can have 2 wheels on the grass, that's okay, but you've got to stay onto that curb to continue traction, to get, you know, good traction out of that corner. And I've done that. Paco has it on this occasion. Keep it nice and close to the apex there. You can get 2 wheels onto the grass on the apex of Madgwick there. And I do actually get the superior run through turn 1 here. And you can see at this point I'm 1.2 seconds behind this pair up ahead. And you can just imagine, say I didn't make that mistake on lap 12, so that was one of the 2 big mistakes I've made in this race. I could very well, you know, be ahead of them. And then there's another pair ahead of this pair directly in front. I could be with them if I didn't make the mistake on lap 9 either. So it is quite easy to see how easy it is to lose positions later in the race when you make mistakes earlier in the race, especially, you know, of course your lap times are important here. But we'll come back to the race now. About 1/3 of a lap to go. Brainache and Pubs here has got stuck together in a little bit of a fight. Brainache gets a poor run out of Levant, but I'm on the outside. Brainache defends, which is fine. Final lap, more than welcome to defend. Going to brake early, actually. So I was going around the outside. You see I get the cutback, he goes deep. I was going to try and go around the outside, but then I realised maybe he would try and brake later to defend that move there. But I then decided to brake early and allow him to run deep, so I could get the cutback, which successfully got pulled off. But in the end, I finished 10th. I started 9th, finished 10th. I was only about a second off Pubs in 9th there, but I think that was a good race. You know, it was an interesting race, an interesting combination. I felt, you know, quite in control of my car. 124 points in the end, so that's not too bad, but 1 position down from where I started, so it could have been a lot better. But I think that race, you know, I think it was an interesting enough race to have as a video, so that's why I decided to do it. But that's going to be the end of this one. Do hit that like button if you enjoyed, and do hit subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this. But that's going to be the end of the video today, and that means that is it from me. So once again, I do thank you very much for watching. See you later.